coming up, if you haven't heard, we have the Women's Conference here at the historic Sacred Heart Chapel in Covina. This is where we do our show. This is where our headquarters are. This Women's Conference is going to be Saturday, May 4th. True Feminine Mystique. I'm looking here at the website. Anybody who's interested in this conference can go to our regular website, virginmostpowerfulradio.org. Click on the banner, and it's right there. You scroll down a little bit, and you will see it. No way you're going to miss it. Let me read it off for anybody who hasn't been to the website yet. And it just says the 2024 Women's Conference, True Feminine Mystique, Bearers of the Mystery of Life. There's no denying that. Nobody's going to take that away from you. Nobody else bears life in this world. That's the way God designed us. And that is part of the mystique. And I'll tell you what, as a guy growing up, I will say women were quite mysterious. There was a lot of mystique going into the idea of, gosh, you're going to date women one day. How do I say the right words? It's kind of a mystery, but hopefully at the conference, we can learn a little bit more about that. I know it's called a women's conference, and we anticipate that women are going to sign up, but I always actually encourage, whenever we have a women's conference, I think that the men should go to the women's conference. And whenever we have a men's conference, I think the women should go to the men's conference too. I think it's important to have, perspective on both sides, because ultimately we're, going to live together. We're going to share the world together. We're going to share workspace together. We're going to learn how to interact, and we can learn a lot about, gosh, what's important to each other, what makes us different, what makes us similar as men and women. And more than anything else, what I like about this conference in particular, let me read a little bit here on the banner, because this is the part that I want to emphasize. So the speakers, I'm actually going to be there. I'm going to be one of the speakers, but the speakers are Mary Danielle Barber, who you guys know from Bible with the Barbers. And she's always has great insight into the faith, great biblical knowledge, great, it's a pleasure listening to her show, because you start to get just the real, as Terry and Jesse say, orange is Catholicism. There's not much else. She squeezes it out of the Bible. She reads a verse and she'll just tell it how it is, and she has such great insight. I'm going to be one of the speakers, and we're also going to have Vanessa Forsblad. And some of you might know her as an internet personality. I know that I've seen some of her videos online, and she's that one Catholic girl. So really special. Hopefully we'll have a great time there. And we can talk about this true feminine mystique and what it means to be the bearers of the mystery of life. Single tickets are $45. Mother and daughter pairs are $80. And you can add an additional daughter for $25. Again, that's going to be Saturday, May 4th, here at the historic Sacred Heart Chapel. Let me read the address for you. It's let me actually back up here. I lost the address on there. It is 381 West Center Street, Covina, California, 91723. So make sure you go to
feeling depressed. And here, let me go through some criteria of depression so you can understand what I think about. This is through the DSM. This is what psychiatrists use. I don't have a special magic bag of tricks or anything like that. I just go through the usual professional standard of care criteria. So are you in a depressed mood most of the day? Loss of interest or pleasure in a lot of activities, unintentional weight loss or weight gain, challenge in terms of sleeping. What about agitation? Or you're so tired, agitation in your body, you can't sit still, or you're so tired you can't get out of bed. You just lay in bed all day, and you already in your mind imagine that you cleaned your room, you did the dishes, you did everything for the house, but you have not moved. And maybe by 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock p.m., maybe you're starting to go to the bathroom and brush your teeth for the day. That can happen, and we call that psychomotor retardation. So it just means that everything's very slowed down because of the depression. What about just general fatigue, or everything's slow? You can get up, you can get out of bed, but it's like slow motion. I can't, gosh, they asked me to finish these reports. I feel like I'm doing it, but everybody's already done with their work, and I'm falling behind. What about a sense of worthlessness or excessive guilt? Sometimes I just feel guilty for things and I don't know why. This is a classic sign of depression. I think I'm going to get fired. Why? I don't know. I just have this feeling like I'm going to get fired. Or you know what? I wore the wrong shoes. Oh, and that's all I think about. Everybody's going to notice that. And that's my focus for the whole day. It's not like when we say, somebody walks up to you and says, oh, I don't know about that sweater on you. And we're like, what are you talking about? I look good. right? But when somebody is truly depressed, you might tell them that, and that ruins their whole day to where they might actually have to go home and change their clothes because that's what their mind is doing at that time. Inability to think, or they can't concentrate, they can't focus or make a simple decision. What would you like for lunch? I don't know. Okay, well, we got two options. You can have a hot dog or a burger. And you're like, what's going on? It's just a simple decision. But really, depression can do that. It can slow the brain down in many, many ways. And what we always look for, of course, as therapists and psychiatrists is there any suicide? Any thoughts of death? Any thoughts that you might want to end your life or hurt yourself in any way, even cut yourself? A lot of people will do that. A lot of people will cut, not to end their life, but because they're either so emotionally numb or in so much emotional pain that it doesn't translate physically. So sometimes people will cut their legs or their arms. Why? Because they want to have a physical equivalent to the pain that they're feeling emotionally. And that can be dangerous because what we want to make sure of is that they're not making a cut or something along those lines where all of a sudden they could really hurt themselves, and that wasn't even their intention. Okay, so that's what was going through my mind, obviously, as I spoke to this lady, very nice lady. And she met criteria. She had these symptoms. She was going to work, but she wasn't really doing well. Her boss was frustrated with her because she wasn't getting her paperwork in. And then as I started talking to her about her relationships with her sons at home, one of the biggest things that stood out is she said, they don't listen to me. I get home. I ask them to do something simple like clean their room or something, and they're just not listening to me. I don't even know what they're doing. They're in their rooms and they're in a bad mood. She said, and then the other day, my son, when I told him, hey, you know what? He's like 17. She says, you need to go clean your room and you need to straighten up. I'm getting a little bit tired of this. She said, he looked at me and he growled like a wolf. And he growled like a dog, she said, I don't know where that came from. It was just this nasty growl, like he was an animal or something. And I said, okay. I didn't get too scared. And I just said, that happened. I don't know why he did that. I don't live in that house. I don't know if it was a nervous tick or, he just saw the Wolfman movie. I don't know. So I don't want to make any assumptions, but, it got me thinking a little bit. And I said, okay, well, how's your spiritual life? And I ask all my patients, how's your spiritual life? I don't ask them, what's your religion? Do you go to church? Because that question alone, believe it or not, evokes a lot of response. How's your spiritual life? It evokes the response of somebody who looks inside and says, I know I'm not doing what I should be doing. So I asked her, how's your spiritual life? She said, I grew up Catholic. I don't go to church. I haven't been practicing the faith. And I told her, well, how do you feel about the faith? She goes, I go to a prayer group every now and then at a Protestant church down the street, but I don't go to the Catholic one. And I told her, well, how do you feel about getting back to your roots? And, you grew up Catholic, and what do you think of the Eucharist? Do you think it's the real presence of Christ? And I told her, because I'll be honest with you, I can prescribe you medication, and I think you need some for your depression. No question about it. The depression was there. I said, I don't think you need to be on it long term, but what if we just get you a little bit of low dose medication, but can you do me a favor? Can you just kind of start going back to church, maybe just do a holy hour, once a week, if nothing else, and just see what happens? And she says, okay, I'll try to do that. I go, because honestly, I think you just need a little bit more Jesus in your life, and things will probably get better. So I didn't see her for 2 years. 2 years, all of a sudden, she didn't come back, and I thought, either I upset her or she didn't. I don't know. We'll see. Well, 2 years later, I see that she's in the waiting room and she's on my schedule. And I say, wow, she's back. I wonder what's going on. And she was looking, you see somebody's face, like you walk into a room, and sometimes we can tell if somebody's anxious or depressed. You walk into a waiting room somewhere, you got to sit down. We all do this. You scan the room and you say, oh, I'm not sitting next to you. Oh, no. Where's an empty chair? Yeah, I'll sit over there. I'll be by myself because you look weird. I don't know what you're thinking. Right? We do this, right? We pick up on people's auras, right? And so, but I saw her and she had a very happy aura. She looked happy. She looked very, like she just came out of a salon almost, her makeup was done, her hair was done. She was wearing a really smart suit, it looked really, really good. And she comes in and I said, hey, you haven't been here for 2 years. How are you doing? I was looking at her record and she had not picked up her medication refills or anything, but she looked very happy. And I said, what's going on? And she said, what? I came back here. I go, do you need more medication? What's going on? And she said, I came back here. She said, I hope I'm not wasting an appointment for you, but I just came back here to thank you. I said, really? Okay. I go, not a waste at all. And she said, I want to thank you because I did what you told me. I got back into the church. She said, I actually sat there in front of the tabernacle for an hour. She goes, and I cried. She goes, I cried because I didn't know where my life was. Everything was all over the place. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know who to talk to, who to turn to. And you were the only one who told me to go to church. None of my friends, even at the prayer group, they were just talking about praying a lot, but nobody said to go to church. And I truly believe this is where we see, is there a real presence of Christ in the tabernacle or not? And if there is, and Christ is real, and just like I go to a doctor and I expect him to write a prescription and I can go pick it up and take it and feel better, is Christ going to give me a real spiritual prescription when I'm there that I can tell inside my heart, inside my soul that Jesus is talking to me and he's telling me what to do, and it's a conversation that we're having, and do I take that prescription from Christ himself or not? Well, she took it. She took it and she told me, and I said, well, what happened after you went? She said, I sat there in front of the tabernacle. She said, I go back to work, and for whatever reason, my boss just kind of left me alone and my work started getting efficient. She said, I didn't think much of it at the time, but I started, doing stuff, and people started noticing that my job was good and I'm up for a promotion. Okay. I go, how are things at home? She goes, weirdest thing. She goes, after I went to that holy hour, I came back home and my son cleaned his room and apologized to me for not having, he's 17. And he said, gosh, sorry, Mom, I didn't listen to you. So I cleaned my room. She said, that was out of nowhere because I've been on him for that for like a year or two. He's a teenager. He's not listening to me. His room stunk. She goes, I wouldn't even go in there because he doesn't do his laundry, and I'm not going to touch that. So I go, okay. And she got her life better. And believe it or not, this is where I see, was she going through a depression? Absolutely. Biologically, she was going through a depression. Was it something that was going to be treated with medication? Not necessarily, because her depression was originated from a spiritual sense, and the medication was going to be a good support. But how many people come to me and are on depression medication for years because, yes, they are truly going through a biological depression that's being affected by the spiritual, but they never get to the root cause. If we don't get to the root cause, I can band-aid you with medication for a long time and it'll work. And according to the biological world, it'll be, yeah, you have chronic depression. But are we doing anything further than that? Are we saying, no, this could be potentially spiritual?